So it's been funny to watch, the last few weeks, just to see, are the Boston Celtics just going to get totally finessed here? Because we all know that this is the team with just the most leverage. They've got all these picks, of course, from that infamous Brooklyn Nets trade. And, we're talking about them signing all these big name free agents. Well, Blake Griffin was an option first. And now it's Gordon Hayward. Like, the internet won't shut up about Gordon Hayward these last few days. But now they can, because he's agreed to sign a 4-year deal with the Boston Celtics, which is huge news, likely the biggest news we'll have for the rest of this offseason. Honestly, this was the big bomb we've been waiting for to be dropped. And it was very interesting to see, just because of the fact that, Philly trades their number 1 pick away. They don't acquire Jimmy Butler. They don't acquire Paul George. They don't sign Blake Griffin. And we start to wonder a little bit, what's really going on there. This team is supposed to be building something big. They have the pieces, I would say, the leverage to do that, because they already have a number 1 seed team intact, which clearly isn't ready to contend, just because of the fact that LeBron James still rules the Eastern Conference. And even if Boston is just to somehow get to the NBA Finals, despite that, you got the Warriors to deal with most likely, and if not the Warriors, then some other powerhouse Western Conference team that the Boston Celtics just clearly aren't ready for. But that's really not important. It's more about LeBron James and the Cavs. Can you build a team good enough to beat this Cavs team before the NBA Finals? Teams have tried and teams have failed in the last, 7 years now? It's just getting too many. We need somebody to break up that streak, and the Boston Celtics think they got a shot at doing it. Now, obviously, it would have been a lot easier to do it had they acquired a big-name superstar, that they were trying to trade for, like Jimmy Butler or Paul George. One of those two guys would have been perfect. You got 2 wing spots, and you can use them on Jimmy Butler and Gordon Hayward, or Paul George and Gordon Hayward. So, obviously, the Celtics didn't make that trade, but they did get half of, that wing tandem. So Gordon Hayward. And look, a lot of people are going to say, this isn't enough to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers. We'll see how it works out. Gordon Hayward is a very underrated player. Most people have the idea that this team still isn't going to beat LeBron James, and for good reason. I mean, this team got absolutely annihilated in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, despite winning that 1 game. They were no match for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and it was clear to literally everybody in the world at the time. So Gordon Hayward, yeah, he's a great player. Does he really make that big of a difference where, we can talk about the Boston Celtics as a championship contender? Normally, if you add an all-star player to a 1 seed, that team is a contender. But I don't think they are in this case, and they're going to have to rely on player development, that is, just to be in that conversation, because they got a bunch of young guys now from the draft in these last 2 years in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Those are 2 guys that, they could really use some help from them in these next couple years, because they're banking on them to be big time players in the future. That's the whole point of acquiring those picks, is they have a present and they have a future, which is really good. It's also really good that they brought in Hayward because of that. Isaiah Thomas is 29, I believe, and he's a 5'9" point guard that we've seen be a tremendous defensive liability, and simply put, he's not going to be the number 1 guy on a championship team because of that. Those tremendous defensive deficiencies and the fact that he's an easier player to key in on, it can't happen that way. He's not the type of player you can build your team around and say, look, this is our number 1 seed. You got to have somebody else as the alpha dog here, and that's Gordon Hayward. I think that he's now going to try to, he might not be better than Isaiah Thomas, but he's got to be the leader of this team. He's got to be able to take the big shots. He's got to be able to guard those big matchups. He's got to do a whole lot for this team, and that's very clear. That's why he's such an important signing. But the other plus side of Gordon Hayward is the fact that they now have some all-star wing player that's in his prime, and they have the team around him that they want at the time. Maybe they're not going to win the championship next year, but man, they could still make trades. Don't forget, this Boston team, look, you don't have to make it right now. They could make the trade any time in the next year, pretty much, because they still have another pick next year, and they have these young players. And if, they decide to get rid of one of these young players that they don't need because they have Gordon Hayward, I mean, at some point it's going to be like, you have Tatum and you have Jaylen Brown. If both of those guys get good, you don't have enough room in the front court or, on the wing for all three of those guys, I don't think. I mean, you really could, technically, I guess you could play Hayward at the 2 and Brown at the 3 and Tatum at the 4 if you have to. But, if something like that happens, you have a really good problem to have there, because you could send one of them away and get something that you need. Like, if you need a center or a point guard, you could send one of them away and get a center or a point guard. So, they don't have to be done making trades at this point. It would be convenient for them to have made that trade. I totally agree. I think that, look, they're signing Gordon Hayward. Yeah, you got to trade for Paul George or Jimmy Butler. This is the time. This is the window, right? If you're going to go for it at all, it's got to be now. But, yeah, I do see the whole, you have LeBron and Golden State right now. Why don't we just wait till those two forces die down, and then maybe you can shoot for the moon with, this team. And hopefully, by the end of the era of LeBron and Golden State, that they're at this peak where it's just they're still unstoppable. No one can get to the finals besides them. Then maybe the Celtics can be like, all right, this is what we were building for. So the whole thing about them having the future is really good because people are assuming that it's going to be easier to get to the finals once LeBron and Golden State, have climbed the top of the mountain, right? So the Celtics, they have a few years now where they can be like, okay, we're going to be really good for a few years, but we're going to still be really good after these few years because we have a plan. And Hayward's on for 4 years now, and we got these prospects that we're drafting super high. We got another one next year, so they got 3 in a row, which are just top-notch prospects, which is awesome for them because they can build around those guys. They just better not draft a wing player, that's all I have to say. So obviously things look pretty good in Boston, but this move doesn't put them over the top this year. No, it doesn't. If they had acquired one of those other guys, it might have. I mean, it would definitely push them into the contention conversation. For me, I would consider them a championship contender if they had acquired Hayward and Butler or George. Like, I would have been like, yeah, this team is there with Cleveland. They're not a sure thing to be beaten at all. I mean, this team could beat I wouldn't favor them against Cleveland. I wouldn't favor them against the Warriors, but they're one of those teams they could. They're a contender. They're a top 3-4 team in the league. You know what I mean? Right now, I wouldn't consider them that because I think that the Warriors are better, the Cavs are better, the Spurs are better, the Rockets are better at this point. And I think that it's going to take some time to see how this team really gets together. We see how they really start working. And look, I mean, this could turn out to be a pleasant surprise, better than we thought. And this team could be insane, right? It could. Obviously, that's just something that, it's like a blind prediction. You can't just say, oh, they're going to be amazing because, we don't know what it's going to be. Obviously, it's going to be good, but we don't know how over the top or far below it might be, right? So, yeah, I mean, that's basically what I have to say on this. I think that this move, yeah, it's a great move. Boston's obviously trying to get Gordon Hayward this entire offseason. We've known about it for hella long. The Jazz are huge losers here, obviously, and it sucks for the Jazz I think it sucks because the Jazz, they're just getting good, right? This team, they made the playoffs. They won a playoff series. I mean, it was looking great for them, and it was great to see this team flourish in the playoffs. Obviously, they didn't win a game against the Warriors, but still, I mean, look at what they accomplished. I mean, it was great to see. Gordon Hayward leaves. Is it a smart decision for Gordon Hayward? I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. It's you got to deal with all these powerhouse teams and the Warriors in the West, or you deal with LeBron in the East. It's so much easier to win in the East. At least it should be. So I guess East, we prefer. I definitely prefer East just because of the fact that, we need someone to compete with LeBron. So at least on the plus side now, we got Gordon Hayward in fucking Boston. So now we have at least 2 teams that are going to put up a competitive series that are going for it all, right? Even though I don't think Boston would win that series, I'm just saying they could at least make it go to 6, right? So yeah, that's what I have to say. The state of the NBA, you know, being everybody's in the West, no one's in the East. Yeah, that's kind of annoying. Paul Millsap, I didn't talk about this, but yeah, when he signed with Denver, it's like just the same thing. You're just the West is like, who's gonna make the West All-Star game, right? It's like everyone, all these great players are gonna get snubbed because it's like everybody's in the West. The East, we're gonna have some scrubs on the fucking reserves. Like that's not gonna work. This is gonna do it for this video. This is big news for sure. I would have loved to see him go to Miami personally. That's where I wanted him to go, but yeah, that wasn't gonna happen, I guess. Even though, look, I love that Miami team. I think that they're set up for something. They need that big piece that Gordon Hayward is. If he joins that Miami team, I think they could build a championship team around him. I honestly do. In Miami, for sure. I mean, Hassan Whiteside is like a perfect center to put on a championship team because he can rim protect against anybody at the rim. Doesn't matter who it is. He'll be there, and he's a huge presence. And he's also just, you know, he's the biggest problem for an opposing center. I mean, he's just so annoying to have to deal with on both sides of the ball, the rebounding. Like, I just think that Miami team would have been so nice. They keep James Johnson for the bench to be their 6th man of the year candidate. I feel like he was snubbed of a lot of attention. Like, he should have at least been in the running for 6th man of the year because I think he did an amazing job. And, you know, like, if that team stays together and you get Hayward, I mean, that would have been huge. So, that didn't happen. I'm a little bummed about that, but he goes to the East. It's a little bit better just because of the fact that we want some more balance in the NBA, which we don't have at the moment. But yeah, that's basically all I have to say about this. Subscribe if you're new. Like this video if you enjoy. Comment what you want me to make a video about this offseason, man. I got, you know, the fucking offseason's gonna be over. I mean, free agency's gonna be over soon. I don't know if I want to do, like, make videos about summer league performances and shit like that, or, like, you know, observations I have. I don't know. So let me know. You want to see a top 10 list? What do you want to see? Leave it down in the comments below. That's gonna do it. I'm out. Thanks for watching, y'all. Peace.